Alright people, so how are you guys doing today? I'm sure that you're all eager to learn more stuff about the game, so here's my follow-up video to my Introduction to Frames video. So if you haven't seen that video yet, I strongly recommend that you watch that video first before watching this one. Or if you already watched it, then great. I'm pretty sure that you're all set for what's about to come next. So in this video, we're going to learn how to take advantage of your opponent when you know that they're going to do something that you think that they will do. I'm going to teach you guys on how to find your own setups in practice mode using what we have learned in the last video. Okay, so the first kind of setup that we want to talk about in this video are frame traps. Frame traps work very good on opponents who mash or those who do not respect frame advantage. And I'm pretty sure that some of you guys already know the basic formula for this. If you can still remember in my last video, we naturally get frame advantage whenever we hit the opponent, block the opponent's move, or make the opponent block something that is plus on block. And this is basically how momentum works in Tekken. Being at a frame advantage incentivizes you to do another attack. So for this example, we're going to hit the opponent with Jin's down back 4, since that puts us at a +3 frame advantage. Therefore, if we're at +3, then that means we recover 3 frames ahead of the opponent. Or simply put, the opponent is frozen for 3 frames. So in this example, let's just assume that the opponent will try a 10-frame jab because that is their fastest move available. And as we can see here, in order to beat a 10-frame jab, the slowest move that we can do is a 13-frame move. So what move does Jin have that is 13 frames or faster, that is also good on counter hit? Well, Jin does have a 10-frame 2-4, which is also his 10-frame Punisher, and yes, that's gonna work fine. But it does the same thing both on hit and counter hit, and we certainly can get a better reward than that. Now if you're thinking Jin's Magic 4, then that is the correct answer. Jin's Magic 4 is a counter hit launcher that is 13 frames fast, which is just fast enough to counter hit the jab. So in order to test this setup, we want to make the CPU play as the character we're testing the setup for. So in this case, we want to make the CPU into Jin. I know the roles should be reversed, but this is the only way that we can test the setup for now. So we're gonna record the CPU do a down back 4 into a magic 4. And then after that, we're just gonna let ourselves get hit by the down back 4 and then we're just gonna mash out. Jab as if we were the opponent falling for the trap. We can try any attack, but as you can see, the hit strayed whenever we try a jab. That is because we can see on the diagram that Jin's Magic 4, having a head start of 3 frames, will meet a 10-frame jab at the exact same frame. But this is still in Jin's favor because he still gets the launch anyways. And of course, any other move is slower than a jab, so they will get counter hit regardless. So let us try another example. In this case, we're going to use Leo. So to get frame advantage, we're going to use Leo's move down forward 2+3. This is a low that puts Leo in crouch, but at a good frame advantage of +5. So from fully crouched, let us see what moves are good follow-ups. Let's try a hop kick or upward 4. A hop kick will launch people who mash out anything that are not jabs. But when the opponent jabs, the hit strayed because the hop kick is 15 frames. But unlike what we have seen before in the Jin example, this does not get the launch because the hop kick also puts her in midair, and she gets floated. So the hop kick isn't a very good choice, not only because it gets floated by jabs, but also because it's punishable and also steppable. Let's try while standing 3-1-2, and this one might be very good. First of all, because the entire string is guaranteed if the first hit counter hits, Plus, it's also fast enough at 13 frames to become fully uninterruptible. And they also can't step this either. Next is that it is also counter hit confirmable, which means that you can choose to not finish the string if you see that the first hit got blocked. And finally, the second hit might be -10 on block, but the opponent may not choose to punish because they might get hit by the last hit. Let's try another example. In this case, we're going to make the opponent block something that is plus on block. Now for the move that we want the opponent to block, we have Law's Forward 1+2, which is also called the Dragon Hammer. For people who still don't know Law, Law's Dragon Hammer puts Law at +3 and forces crouch. So this move is pretty annoying to block. For our counter hit move, Law has a lot of fast moves to counter hit with. Law has 10 frame jab strings such as 1-2-3 and 1-2-2-2, in which all hits are guaranteed when the first hit counter hits. Law also has 11 frame counter hit launchers such as Magic 4 and even the very risky while standing 4-3. But the good players will of course minimize the risk by learning how to DSS after while standing 4. Now all those moves are fast enough and will frame trap the opponent if they press buttons after blocking the Dragon Hammer. So you guys might be getting it now by this point. You can easily set up counter hits as long as you have frame advantage. In fact, you can even use it defensively because you also get put at a frame advantage whenever you block something. So the rule that you have to remember for frame traps to become uninterruptible is that you need to have just the right amount of frame advantage for your next move to outspeed a 10 frame jab, just like the 3 examples I showed you before. But you don't always have to follow this rule because opponents don't always go for the fastest of their moves. They can do the slower moves such as mids and lows. In fact, the fastest mid that most characters can do is around 13 frames, though there are a handful of characters who do have 12 frame mids. But my point is that you won't ever find any mid or low that are as fast as 11 or 10 frames. Because the 11 and 10 frame moves are generally highs, which are the jabs and the magic force. Okay, so let's take this example. We're gonna let the opponent block Leroy's down back 1-3. And yes, I know that they can duck this move, but for the sake of this example, let's just say that the opponent didn't duck. Down back 1-3 on block is 0 or neutral, which means that both Leroy and the opponent will recover at the exact same frame. But let's say that the opponent isn't gonna try to jab us. Let's say that they're gonna do a 13 frame down forward 1. And because they do, we can now use Leroy's best counter hit launcher, back 1+2, which is a 12 frame mid. But keep in mind that if they do something faster than 12 frames, like for example an 11 frame Magic 4, then Leroy's gonna be the one who gets launched. Leroy's back 1+2 will only beat the slower moves, which are mostly the mids and lows, but loses when the opponent does a fast high. And to beat the fast highs, one option that we can do is to go for a high crush move, such as Leroy's down 2 or down back 4. And now we're gonna go to high crushes. So by definition, high crush moves go under high moves because they have a crouching property within their animation. And some of the special ones even go under mids as well. So they might be good to throw out when you have an absolute read that your opponent will do a high. High crush moves come in different kinds. There are poke high crushes, and there are also those that knock down, and also those that launch. Most of the high crush moves are punishable, so always be aware of the risk when the opponent doesn't fall for them. You may visually tell if a move high crushes through their animation, because your character will probably dip down during the move. But this isn't the case for every move like this. Some moves look like they lunge down, but they don't have any high crushing property whatsoever. However, thanks to Season 3's Frame Data DLC, we can now tell if a move high crushes, if its status says crouching. But the thing I don't like is that it doesn't tell you the exact frame when a move begins to be in a crouching state. Yes, you can test this yourself, but that's not a very convenient way to find out. We can find out when we go to the Getopotamus Frame Data website. It will tell you if a move high crushes if you see the letters capital TC on the move notes, which stands for technically crouching. And what's very convenient is that it also tells you the exact frame when the move begins to high crush. So let us take this example. King's Atlas Hammer is this very slow double uppercut launcher. It is very slow because the startup takes around 23 frames, and it's also highly punishable being at -24 on block. So why the hell would you use this move when it's very slow and very punishable? Well, the answer to that is because of its high crush property. If you set this move up correctly, you can even kill the opponent for just doing a single jab. Again, when we look at the frame data, this move is 23 frames fast, and will go under highs from the 6th frame and onwards. So knowing that, if we want to find out the worst possible frame situation for this to still go under jabs, we need to place the crush window to begin exactly at 10 frames. As you can see in the diagram, it now shows 4 X's, which means that we can go as bad as -4 and still be able to crush jabs with this move. Now, we want to look for moves that are -4 or better on block. Well, King has 1-2-1, which is -4. Down forward 2-1, which is also -4. And up back 1, the homing move, which is -3. Now, let's see what happens when King is at -5. Now, for the move, let us use King's forward 1. If you look at the diagram, the Atlas Hammer should still be able to crush 11 frame moves. And testing this, we can now see that the Atlas Hammer gets counter hit by the jab. But when we try a slower high, such as an 11 frame Magic 4, it gets launched, as we can see here. Okay, so enough of that example, let's do another one. Let us do Lost Down to 3. The reason why this move is good, and why this move is like the favorite green rank loss setup, is that it's fast at 11 frames and will crush highs at its 4th frame. It's so fast that it can counter hit the slower mids and lows, and it will also go under the fast highs. But for this to launch people, you will still need the counter hit. So for example, since this move crushes highs at its 4th frame, the worst frame situation for this to go under jabs is when Law is at -6. Like for example, when 1-2-3 gets blocked. As you can see, if the opponent does a single jab, the down 2-3 is not gonna land as a counter hit, but only as a punish. It means that only the dick jab will hit, but not the launching second hit. And of course, we already know what happens when Law gets down 2-3 blocked. But let us say that the opponent does a 1-2 string instead. Now the counter hit will work, because there is now a second hit to counter hit. Okay, last example. For this, we're going to use Master Raven's down forward 3. Now this move is a high counter hit launcher that comes out around 15 frames. And right here, the frame data tells us that this move will go under highs at its 8th frame. Now, the high crush window is kinda late, so to be able to crush jabs, Master Raven needs to be at worst -2. Apparently, I couldn't find any Master Raven moves that are exactly -2 on block, so we're gonna have to go with a -1. For -1 moves, Master Raven has 1-2, down forward 1, down back to 1, and back turn to 1. And of course, like Lost Down to 3, you would also need them to do a second hit. But don't worry, because Master Raven is still good if she only lands a regular hit. But one thing that I found out is that not all moves that go under highs are listed to be technically crouching. Some moves will have high crush frames only at certain parts of their animation. Like the very infamous one, which is Paul's down forward 2. As you can see right here, it only goes under jabs when Paul is at around -4 or -3. It's a really weird property, and I think the pushback also plays a part on this. So for these kinds of moves, you have to manually test to find out the situations when their crushing property works. Okay, so next is we have low crushes. And you obviously can tell how these moves work. If high crushes go under highs, then low crushes go over lows. And the way to easily tell if a move low crushes is that it jumps. You can also tell if you look at the in-game frame data display. The status will say that the move is airborne. And also, when going over to the Get Hippopotamus frame data website, if high crush moves are denoted with the letters TC, then the low crush moves are denoted with the letters TJ, which stands for technically jumping. And this also shows you the exact frame when these moves begin to lift off the ground. But if you compare the low crush moves to their high crushing counterparts, their crush windows come much later. That is because lows in the game are mostly slower than highs. Though there are lows, though not technically lows, that are fast. A standard crouching jab, otherwise known as a dick jab, is a special mid that is 10 frames fast, that can still be low parried or even low crushed. A generic down 4 is the known fastest low in the game. A lot of characters have this move, and it is 12 frames fast. The common hop kick and orbital will begin to crush lows at their 9th frame. For example, let us test this. Shaheen's while standing 1 puts him at -2, and then we're gonna do a hop kick after that. If I try a dick jab, as you can see, this will hit before the crush window, so the hop kick will never get the chance to leave the ground. But if I try a generic down 4, or basically any low that is 11 frames and slower, then that will fall right into the crush window, and as you can see, it loses to the hop kick. Hop kicks are generally faster than orbitals, but most of them are punishable on block at -13. And orbitals are a lot slower than hop kicks, but are safe on block, though they still leave you at a significant disadvantage. So why would you ever want to crush a low when you can just block or low parry? Well, blocking is better for the launch punishable lows, obviously because you get to punish them with a launcher to get a full combo. Low parrying is better for those lows that are not so punishable on block. Lows that are like -11 or -12 on block. Josie's down 4 is even -10. So if your character doesn't have a good 11 or 12 frame punisher like Leo and Dragunov have theirs, you'd have no choice but to punish those with your characters while standing 4, which is the generic 11 frame punisher from Crouch. So if you want to get better damage than that, you would have to do a low parry to get a float combo. But when you know that it's going to be a low and not want to worry about choosing whether to block or low parry, you can always just hop kick them. Sure, you can just low parry both, but because some lows could be slow or can be delayed, they could really mess up the timing of your parry. And by the way, here's another situation when low crushing is better than both blocking and parrying lows. Yoshimitsu's Sword Sweep. Of course, this move is an unblockable, so you can never try to parry or block this. But you can, of course, go over it by doing a hop kick or an orbital. Okay, so we're now done with low crushes. Now we're gonna go to power crushes. So power crushes are a new mechanic that was first introduced in Tekken 7. Tekken only used to have the crush system, which were the high and low crushes. But now, thanks to power crushes, they bring new possibilities that give the game even more depth. Power crushes, as we already know, will armor through any high or mid, but are also weak to lows and throws. Setting them up is pretty much the same as high crushes and low crushes, in which the opponent's attack has to fall into the move's armor frames. But the thing that you gotta remember is that if the opponent's attack recovers earlier than your power crush, what's gonna happen is that not only that the armor gets wasted with you taking free hits, but they also will get to block and punish your power crush. Or duck if your power crush happens to be a high. Looking over the power crushes in the Hippopotamus website, power crushes are denoted with the letters PC, and the armor frames are also shown as well. Let's say we want to find a setup for Asuka's forward 1+2, which is a very good wall bouncing power crush. Since the armor activates during the 8th frame, the worst possible frame situation for this to not get interrupted by jabs is when Asuka is at -2. So we can set this up after moves that leave Asuka at -2 on block, such as 1-2-3, 1+4 2-1, 1+4 3, and forward 3. Frame traps are better used when you have the frame advantage, and power crushes are better used when you have a slight frame disadvantage. Even though there's definitely no stopping you from using power crush when you're at plus frames, why risk taking damage with a power crush when you can instead use a frame trap? For example, Steve's 2-1 flicker stance puts him at a good +3 on block. And against button pressers, you definitely can do flicker back 2 to power crush. But when you have low life, then you simply can't afford taking any more damage. It would make sense for you to go for a frame trap instead, such as the Flicker 1 strings. Flicker 1, by the way, comes out at 12 frames, which is uninterruptible when Steve is at +3. Alright, that's it you guys. Apparently I don't want to make this video longer than it is right now, but there are still a lot of stuff that I want to cover, so I will be leaving those in a follow-up video. Anyways, I put a lot of thought in making this video, so I apologize if this didn't come out any sooner. But whatever, thanks for watching the entire video, and I really hope that this helps you improve your game. And of course, special thanks to all my patrons for continuing to support this channel. If you want to support me, you can pledge any amount through my Patreon, or you can donate any amount through my PayPal. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for watching this video.